finger down if when you were 35 weeks pregnant, you told your boss that you had a backache and you wanted to go home. They ask you to wait an hour. So you go to the bathroom and you feel a slight pain in your stomach, but you think nothing of it until you get out of the bathroom and that pain has intensified by 500 times. You start screaming and someone comes out and calls 911. And they call your husband. Your husband rushes to the hospital and the ambulance rushes you to the hospital. When you get to the hospital, you're put in a room in labor and delivery, and the nurse on labor and delivery tells you to describe your pain. You start crying, telling her exactly how much pain you were in, and she tells you to shut up because she's typing. So you try to shut up, but you're in so much pain that you start screaming, telling her, please, I feel like I'm dying, please help me. And she tells you that if you don't shut up, she's gonna leave the room. So then you quietly beg her to please don't leave the room, just please help you because you feel like you're dying. She tells you that she feels like you're faking for pain medicine. And so when she does the check of your baby's heart rate and contraction, she sees that you're not contracting. You tell her you have pain in your shoulders and the pain in your stomach is constant. So you don't believe that they are contractions. You don't know what's going on, but you're in severe pain and you need help. She tells you that you're faking for pain medicine and that you need to tell them what kind of drugs you're on. You let them know that you've actually never taken any drugs in your life. You're not faking for pain medicine. Whatever's going on is serious and you need help. She then tells the doctor to order a drug screen. They order a drug screen and the doctor comes in and the doctor says that they need to do an urgent C-section to get the baby out because the baby's heart rate is decelerating. The nurse looks at the drug screen results and sees that they're negative and tells you in front of the doctor that you need to just tell them what kind of pain medicine, what kind of drugs you're on so that they can help your baby. You start screaming and crying, telling her, please stop saying that I'm on drugs. I'm not on drugs. I'm in severe pain. So then you go into the operating room. It takes them forever to do your spinal. When you lay down, you lose consciousness within 3 minutes because you start going into a grand mal seizure. They then determined that your blood pressure was 220 over 180, and you actually clearly had eclampsia. Not only did you have eclampsia, but your baby's placenta had detached and your uterus had ruptured from top to bottom, and your baby was laying dead in a puddle of blood in your abdomen. It takes 17 minutes for them to resuscitate your baby. You also lose your heart rate, and that takes them 16 minutes to resuscitate you. When you wake up out of your medically induced coma, they tell you that they airlifted your baby 2 hours away to a better hospital equipped to help him. When you get to the hospital, you're met with a social worker because the hospital lied and told them that you were on drugs. Not only did the hospital lie and tell them you were on drugs, but the hospital also lied and told them that you tested HIV positive, even though you didn't. So you were unable to breastfeed your baby ever. They completely destroyed your birth and almost killed your child. So I wanted to respond to this comment. One of the more hurtful things that the nurse said to me is that this isn't my first rodeo. And this also isn't my first time around the block. I've been in labor before, and I know that labor pains don't start in your shoulders. When I woke up from my medically induced coma, the doctor came over to me and told me that I was going to be experiencing a lot of pain in my shoulders because I had so much internal bleeding, and that bleeding would cause pressure that would build up in my shoulder region. And for me to let them know if it was getting worse. And so when they said that, I immediately realized that the nurse had all the signs in front of her that this was serious. And she just decided that I was a drug addict with no proof, no medical records showing that I ever failed a drug screen, me not failing my drug screen there, my baby didn't fail his drug screen. She just made a decision about who I am based off of what I look like. And that's just it. It was unfortunate and almost cost me and my son our lives. I wanted to respond to this comment. I just picked the first one I could find that says, you can fire your nurse, right? Well, by the time my husband and Miss Lisa, who was like a mom to me, arrived to the hospital, I had already been in the room with just that nurse for about 30 to 45 minutes maybe, enduring that verbal abuse a few times. By the time they got there, shortly after they arrived, a few other nurses came into the room with us. I was still screaming, still crying, and it was then that the nurse, that nurse said, If you don't shut up, we're going to leave the room. And you're going to be in here crying by yourself, and no one's going to be in here. There were other nurses in there. So my husband and Miss Lisa both on different occasions speak about a nurse that they looked at, who looked very young, that when she heard the things that the nurse was saying to me, apparently they say that she looked like appalled, but she stayed silent. And I think that this is a great moment to say that silence is compliance. And when the CDC reports that Black or people of color, women of color, are more likely to die in childbirth than any other race, it's not saying that every single doctor or nurse that they're coming in contact was bad, but I think that there's something to be said about the nurses who say nothing too. Yeah, the one nurse was awful, but there were other nurses in the room who said nothing, who they didn't say anything. And so I didn't think that I could just fire a nurse and get someone better. I didn't think that at all. I thought that no one cared. I thought that I was going to die. And, even at one point, the nurse, I was screaming, saying I'm in pain. And she said, "Let me guess, you want some pain medicine?" And I said, "I'll take Tylenol." Because I thought that if I asked for anything other than Tylenol, it would solidify that I was a drug addict. All of those nurses that were in there with her were younger than her. And so I'm sure that they felt some kind of hierarchy that they weren't there. I just want to say, nurses, your silence could cost someone their life. So I didn't think I was going to post more about it. I've been seeing the comments asking me, did I sue? Yes, of course. I sued and I won 2 different lawsuits against the hospital. I also sued my own doctor's office because I had been in the doctor's office for an appointment just 2 or 3 days before that. And in that, even though it was documented, I don't know, it just went unnoticed that I had a high level of protein in my urine and my blood pressure was high. So I would have been diagnosed with preeclampsia right then had they have paid attention, but they didn't. I didn't win that lawsuit at all. I did win the lawsuits against the hospital. The first lawsuit was for medical malpractice, and that lawsuit took a long time. The next lawsuit was because when my attorney went to request the medical records, they charged my attorney about 10 or 15 times the cost of what it was to get my medical records, and we believe that that was an attempt to halt me from doing the lawsuit. But I walked out of the hospital and I was on the phone with an attorney walking out of the hospital. Before I ever even went to the other hospital to see my son, I had already acquired an attorney, which that attorney also sent me to a family attorney to deal with the DCF issue that I had from them believing that I was on drugs. But that was actually very quickly solved, and nothing came of that. But my attorney spoke to me, and they usually send attorney's assistants or something to have you come sign papers, but he showed up himself to my house that night. He was shaking when he was handing me the paperwork, as I was telling him, and the people that were there with me in the hospital room were telling him what that birth looked like. The nurse did lose her job, and I think she lost her job within 2 to 3 weeks of my birth. And that actually had nothing to do with the lawsuit, but it had everything to do with the doctor that delivered my son filing a formal complaint against the nurse for gross negligence, because she wasn't made aware of any of the pain that I was describing. And, she was just told that I looked like I was coming in on drugs and that I probably needed a drug screen. And that's why that was the only test that was ordered for me at all. 3 hours I was there screaming in pain, and an ultrasound test hadn't even been ordered, only a drug screen. I'm gonna do a full story, but I feel like this comment borders in gaslighting. I didn't say the race of the nurse or the doctor because I think it was a no-brainer. Everyone in that room was a Caucasian from the mountain of Caucasus.
Yes, Bill.
I wanted to take the time to address something that I said. It has come to my attention that I offended a group of people. It was never my intentions to do that. I was unaware that white people are no longer calling themselves Caucasians. I am so sorry for calling them Caucasians from the mountains of Caucasus. I think all, I'm not saying that one. I'm not saying that one. I like white people. Not all white nurses are bad. I am sorry for saying the nurses in my room were Caucasians. I meant to say that they were white. My dog is white. I can't say, I don't want to say that one either. I can't say that. I'll just make my card. I don't think that one either. Not that one. Not that one either. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you.
You're supposed to stick to the script.